Recording. Hello, this is feedback session for April. And I will start with sharing screen. Yes, screen is here. Okay, and I will start what I have received. First, I have snowdrops. And this was the reference. Okay. About the snowdrops. First thing that got my attention is the stem area. Mute. Yeah. So the stem area could be a little bit more precise. Maybe that's the problem. It's so common that stems are left unattended because main view is like thinking that main subject is flower heads, but no, the whole composition is very important. Even the tiniest details are important because flowers are painted very good, but what grabs the attention is little flaws, and that's what is with the stem. It could be a little bit more straighter, and also if we look at the reference, the flowers are to have too much of the blue color in the reference, but the stem, we can see that this area, and in order to make it round, we need to add shadow on the right side. It's maybe not so visible, but it is there. If we compare this line to this line, and it is slightly darker. So the same could be applied here, because here we can clearly see the shadow, and then it just stops. And when there's no shadow, then it looks flat. A little bit more brush strokes can be done. The stem can be made much better with few brush strokes of, I would add lemon yellow, because snowdrops have a very vivid, bright green color in real life. First flowers have a very bright and intense green color to them. So I would add lemon yellow and a little bit of shadow to the right. Also, I would add some very transparent washes of lemon yellow, or it can be, better it would be lemon yellow, because it's more brighter and it will make this green more pop, make it more similar to what are they in the outside in the springtime. A little bit more freshness to this green color mix would add just very transparently a lot of water to the lemon yellow, so it is transparent. So it's like a watery wash of transparent lemon yellow will do a nice touch to these snowdrops. What else? Maybe otherwise, I like it very much. I know that this photo is much darker than they are in real life. I can see from the paper color and that, and I think they're in real life are much brighter, and white surface of the white petals are more vivid. Otherwise, it's very nicely done. I like the upper part. What got my attention is the stem and a little bit brighter green color, which can be fixed, and stem can be fixed. Just a little extra 10 to 20 minutes and snowdrops will look fantastic. Let's go to the next one. I have this practice, which is very good practice for the beginners, or maybe you had some longer break to do these leaf studies, bended curved leaf, which is in graphite and in watercolors. Also, a little bit more precision with that middle line would be nice. It also can be corrected at this stage with the painting. It can definitely, with a very sorry, I will wait. Sorry. Boys are too loud. I will get back to the sharing. So a little bit more precision to that middle, brighter, lighter line. And it can be done. Shadow here, because this middle white line, as this part of the leaf goes into the shadow, it means the same with this line. It also goes into shadow. So it needs a little bit, again, some watery wash of this green color, this shadow green color would do the thing. It will instantly go into the shadow if there will be a slightly this darker area of this white line. Again, precision could be a nice thing. I know it's tricky with outer edges to be more precise. As I always recommend, you can draw outline smaller if you know that you tend to go over the edges, or maybe hand isn't so steady. So draw the outline a little bit, 1 to 2 millimeters smaller than it appears in line drawing. And then when you are painting and correcting these at the very end, at the finishing stage, you are correcting outer edges, you know that you can go a little bit over the edge in order to correct it, to make it more straighter. And when you are correcting, do that very slowly, especially if you know that the hand is not steady. I know that my hand isn't so steady when I'm doing outer edges, so I do it slowly, patiently, and then it works. Next one, we have hydrangea graphite. Here is the reference. Make a little bit smaller. It's also a very nice graphite practice to consider to do. Okay, what catches my attention? A little bit more attention would be nice, an observation to the reference. For example, this middle part, and let's compare to the reference. And we see that there is the shadow area over here, because light is coming from the left and it's casting shadow on the right. And here we have a slightly opposite situation. Here's the shadow and this is in light. It should be other way. It's just a matter of looking and observing the reference. It's super important. There's no like some magic tricks of seeing. It's just really seeing. And the more you will look, the more you will start to notice. I like the veins, shadows, detailing, super perfect. Maybe don't be afraid to add a little bit more contrast. I would add here. This area could be darker. This one can be darker. This cast, this beautiful, I really enjoy cast shadows, because the cast shadow area can really make these things pop up from the paper surface. So this beautiful cast shadow can be a little bit darker, more intense, in order to work, because cast shadows are quite dark and intense. This can be darker. This can be, so to separate and make this middle part more vivid, and separate these different little petals. Shadow here, here. Of course, this cast shadow area is missing. And a little bit also, this part is slightly darker. So the outer parts of the petals can have more layers. Don't be afraid to put more layers of graphite. Your study can only benefit from that. And yeah, cast shadow, don't miss the cast shadow. It's the beautiful touch. Also here, this area of cast shadow can be a little bit more intense. Okay. We have a hibiscus bud, a beautiful hibiscus bud. Here is the reference. First thing that gets my attention. When you send in your reference, I want to tell you that I'm not quite looking too much, because when I make this feedback, it's very nice to see it almost for the first time. It's like the viewer when we'll be passing, I don't know, your walls or maybe exhibitions, first that got attention. That's the main thing to when somebody else is looking, what is catching? Some minor mistakes or some benefits and some stronger parts of your painting. So here, it's overly done, very good details, but when we have these petal veins, they are beautifully curving around this bud with those beautiful petals. When something goes into the shadow, for example, this area, the veins, which are lighter in the light, they are also becoming darker. Very vivid, this vein. We can see that clearly. Here it is very light, and then it becomes darker and darker because it also goes to the shadow. And here it goes all the way light. The same here, all the way light. And when we are missing this shadow, because here you added shadow, here you added shadow, but veins stayed light. And when you are leaving something completely in tonal value the same all the way, it looks flat. It doesn't have volume. That's the importance of noticing. Look at this vein. It also is light and then it goes dark. Light, it goes dark. All the way. It's everything is the same. And it can be fixed. The good news. It can be fixed. You can add definitely shadow, some very thin layer of this pink watercolor mix that you have. Add it a little bit over these. Don't add over all veins, just the shadow area. This part can be separated, and it needs to go a little bit darker here. So we see that this stamen is going inside the bud and separating from this area. Of course, it could be nice if you would leave a little bit more light. The veins are very light, but for example, here, a light area could be bigger, more intense, more vivid. The same with the green part. Here in the middle, it is darker, then it is lighter, and here it is lighter because it curves around the bud, the green part, and there are different tonal values. Here is darker, then it's lighter, and here it is lighter. You went a little bit too fast, too dark. Okay. No, do a copy. What we have next? Agapanthus, where I have the reference for here. Okay. This upper part, upper flower head, is went here a little bit too dark. We can see clearly from the reference that this part is lighter and this is darker because it is in the shadow. And here we have almost the same tonal values, this area and this area. The same with the antern. It could stamen. It's a stamen, sorry. It could be a little bit lighter here. And then this is good, this is lighter, this is darker. This area could be lighter. Otherwise, it's good. It's good. Yeah, don't go too fast with dark watercolor mixes. I can see also from, because I think it's the same student as was just this hibiscus bud with the green part, a little bit too intense and too fast. Try more transparent layers, lighter layers, but add few more layers rather than go too dark. And then you just don't know how to get that light back. Yeah, it could be lighter. This part particular could be lighter. Okay, white is. Then we have Glory of Snow. These are done very nicely. And I think it's also the same student. These are done very nicely. We have contrast, separation. Maybe this white middle part can have a little bit shadow in the middle. Let's see how it is in the reference here. It is slightly darker because again, it goes slightly away from light source, and this part could be more realistic if it would. Again, it can be added right over here. Don't need to be worried. This really can be a little more touch, some extra work, and it will definitely do the thing and make it more. This one as well, we can see right over here, missing shadow and a little bit cast shadow around. The same here. So when you are almost finished, you place on the computer, like I'm doing right now, you have a finished photo of your work, and then you have a reference which you downloaded. So you just place them side by side on your screen, and you can see what you are missing. I'm not even talking about color tone. That's the specifics of also how camera can represent, slightly change the real, from real life what type of blue you have. But tonal values, you can make it black and white, and you will see that some shadows maybe are missing. Also, this one here could be a little bit more in the shadow. Some minor details, and that, yeah, and again, here we need to separate these two. Here we can clearly see that this lower is darker and upper is lighter. Then here I would add a little bit more darkness. Minor details can be done. Anemone from March. Yeah, from March. This is I saw a lot of you did it, and I'm super happy about that. And an interesting part, as I started receiving your finished work, I also have from Facebook, I noticed that I also have a mistake, and that is normal. So I will open and let's compare. And I will show you minor mistake that can be fixed also on my work. And I noticed you also, all of you have it. So I started to see that this part, this leaf is kind of awkward. And then I looked at mine. It also looked kind of awkward. Why? Because it's missing a shadow here on the lower part. Maybe it's not so vivid in the reference, but it is there. Because first of all, it's attaching to the stem. So it means that it's going into the middle, and there's this curved area. And if we are looking, and it looks undetached from the stem. And I also have the same thing. Here at the lower part is missing a shadow. And when we will add shadow there, me, you, it will instantly look better, because it will look that it goes inside into the closer to the stem area. So these little minor things can change the whole picture. But let's look more. Okay, I would add a little bit darkness right over here. Again, if we are comparing side by side with the finished work and the reference, and if we squint our eyes, we can see the contrast, where is the lighter and where should be darker. Light is very good. Light is left much bigger than it is in the reference, and that is the good thing, because better to have it more rather than lose it. And in order, I would add a little bit darkness here. I would also add a little bit green here because this part is jumping out of the composition. It's too bright. It could be a little bit calmer. You see, a little bit calmer. Just a slight watery wash of light sap green will do the thing. Yeah, so this a little bit darker. Otherwise, maybe here a little bit more. Here you added a very dark line. Let's check the reference. Here's also something similar, maybe a little bit more gradual transition, or make it, for example, this line, make it a little bit further and thinner. So it looks like it's disappearing. Yeah, maybe here at closer to the stem. For example, this area is quite dark. And you could add also a little bit here darkness, and here closer to the stem. So it's all gathers and it becomes darker because it's really under this big flower head. Let's go to the greens. Stem is nice. Stem is light as it should be, and it's wonderful. Yeah, here you can add shadow. It will look instantly like it is curved, like there is this curved area. I would like to see a little bit smoother stem, and as you are practicing now pencils, you can go over here with the colored pencils to make it a little bit smoother, because we can see right, especially the upper part, this part. You need to take some bright green pencil and slightly go over. It will do the trick and make it more smoother.
Okay.
Yeah, and go with like this, here. And then here you need to take different color because this part is brownish reddish, something darker red, maybe even
yellow ochre.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little touch. Don't make it darker though. Don't make it darker
Okay.
because it's already quite dark, but it's normal. It is here also dark, but go over with the pencils and it will look smoother. The same here.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll try with my pencils.
Yeah, you can.
I like that.
If you enjoy pencils, don't be afraid to add pencils. Even if I do just watercolors, that's completely okay.
Good.
Experiment, try different approaches so you find what suits best for you, for your approach, and how you like the most. So you can mix two mediums and have a great result, have a lot of fun doing that. So experiment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's take a look.
Maybe a little bit more yellow.
You can do the same here, add yellow pencil here. You can finish this painting with the pencils.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah. Here maybe a very light blue. If you have something very light, test on a paper, something very cool and light you can do here. And
I have something,
Yeah, it will give a nice touch.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Welcome. Okay, I will leave it because we have more anemones. I think this one needs to close. Next one we have red tulip, which almost was destroyed because a water went over it, but she saved it. And okay, first that got my attention, and maybe if I point out, you will also notice that this line is too wide. And because this tulip is painted perfectly, beautifully, everything is here. But this white line and this dark line really is stealing attention from the tulip. It can't be, even if it's, even if I'm not looking at reference, we need to think it can't be so bright in the shadow. It just can't. It should be slightly darker. And there is this lighter line, but is still in the shadow. This part is reflected light area, and reflected light area can't be in the same tonal value as the light. It even looks, because it's so thin and so precise, it's painted super accurately, but it really gets the attention even from these light areas. Just and again, it can be fixed. Go over with this watercolor mix that you have here, just few transparent layers, and it will instantly calm down, and it will go deeper into the composition, and it will look that that part of the petal is curved inside. And right over here, this dark line, it's a little bit, it looks like, to me, it looks like Perylene Violet. And with Perylene Violet, you need to be super careful. It can jump out very bright and saturated, which maybe is not the best thing sometimes. And as I make it further, we still see this white line. It really is too bright, but it's nicely done. So it looks just few layers and it will be perfect. Maybe what I would suggest for the stem, to add lemon yellow. Transparent layer of lemon yellow will make this stem brighter. Again, because spring flowers have so intense and bright green color. So we need to keep these characteristics of these spring flowers, and lemon yellow will do very good here. I like very much fine detailing. And those fine lines, they're super precise, super worked through. Also, maybe I would go with pink color as I make it closer here. This light area isn't so light as this one because, again, we're thinking we have light source coming from left. It means that this petal has the most of the light. That petal is where the light is hitting the surface. And this one, it doesn't have so much light. In here, we have even this part is lighter, and here we have a watery wash of light pink or light violet. I would add here these light washes and make it a little bit calmer, because now it is much lighter than this part, but it should be other way. And to make it that is other way, few layers of watery washes of pink, because it's in the light, it's much cooler. Red is warmer. This, for example, is very warm. And it can also have a little bit watery wash of Indian yellow. It will make it warmer, but this area needs pink, violet, better pink, but very beautiful, super detailed painting of the tulip. Here's a closer view. Yeah, this line can be a little bit darker. Here we have an interesting tulip. I will open the reference. And what we have, the situation with water drops is missing light. It can be done. Let's quickly switch to the table, and I will show you even from what? Oh, sorry. Even from old paintings, you can extract some watercolors. sorry, yeah. We can extract some watercolors. Here, this is an old one. This is an old one. And we have, for example, let's draw here, this would be that, for example, that water drop, which is missing light. So what should I do? What I need to do? I'm taking synthetic brush. It can be almost any synthetic brush, even the bigger one. If you don't have, this is just thinner and it's easier because smaller area can be affected, but also if you don't have this one, look for other synthetic brush, but it should be synthetic. Then you need a paper towel, water. And where we need that shiny white area, I'm scratching the surface with slightly moist brush, and voila, I have a light little white spot. You don't need white color, you don't need masking fluid, and still you can add little shiny areas to those water drops which are missing, and to make it, we can add shadow, and instantly from nowhere we can create a water drop on an old painting. If you decide maybe to pick up some old rose and you want to make it more interesting, you can add water drops, even to old painting. Adding water drops can be a nice thing. And inner part of the water drop is also in the shadow. And here we have a water drop from nowhere, just old watercolor layer, a strong, stiff synthetic brush, shadow outside the water drop, and shadow inside the water drop. And that's it. And let's get back to our here. Let's zoom closer. So here we can clearly see that this area has light. So I would remove, and then there is shadow here, and then there's light here. A little bit more intense shadow would be nice, and I would remove more of those light areas, and that can be done. Even here, remove more. With the synthetic brush, remove some more lighter, and it will look like little diamonds. It will instantly, more light will give it more realistic and more this shiny look of water drop. A little bit more contrast here. This is much darker in the reference. This, especially these curved areas of the petal, you see here, you can definitely add more watercolors. It will change the whole picture instantly. This area right over here, you beautifully leave the light as it is here and add a little bit darkness, make it more intense. Also, this part of the tulip, if I squint my eyes, I will see that this is light and this is dark. So the same here, I need to leave this light and make this a little bit darker. This one can go darker. Again, these curved areas can go darker. These anterns can be much darker. This 1, 2, these should be light as they are, and a little bit here. To the antern, underneath this top shadow here, add more shadow. This part could be in the shadow. Now, as we are looking further, okay, now here you need to decide which is darker, petal or stem. We need to separate. Here it is clearly visible that we have a reflected light area. This is the darker part, and the stem is looking much darker, and it has a shadow. For now, you don't have a separation from the petal and stem. And the further we go, we see that. Okay. So here we clearly see that this is darker. More contrast. Remove some watercolors from water drops. And great. It will be beautiful. It is beautiful already. It's beautifully done, really. I so enjoy looking at your works. Here we have autumn leaf of a chestnut. Yeah, it's a chestnut. And let's take a look. Stem could have shadow. Let's take a closer look. We can clearly see shadow and light. So fine, darker line will help this stem look more roundish and realistic. I would add be careful. Yeah, the contrast is good. Maybe lemon yellow watery wash will make it more to the more autumn color. Now it is a lot of, maybe it's the thing of photography, maybe in real life it's different, but now it looks more blue than green if we have side by side. And this leaf is from autumn, end of summer, not quite autumn, but end of summer. And it's starting to become more warmer to the brown, to the yellows. And you have quite a lot of blue color. But again, maybe it's the thing with the photography, and in real life it looks slightly different. With this middle part, shadow could be here in the reference. We can see that there is this middle center part, which is dark and even dark brown. And then we have shadows on the beginning of each leaf. Here we can clearly see shadow, 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 shadow. So you need to also add shadows right over here. And then if we start to compare, first we are looking at each section of the leaf separately, but then we need to compare. For example, we are comparing this leaf with this leaf, and we can clearly see that this one is turned towards the light, and this one is turned away from light. So we can clearly see that this is darker and this is lighter, and you have them completely the same. So we need to add some few layers here. If we compare this to this, we can clearly see that this one is lighter. This part is darker. Yes, you have it. Then you somehow lost part of the leaf because this one goes underneath this one and casting beautiful cast shadow. I would, the same as here. You slightly, you can, if you want to work more on this leaf, you could add it and make it so this one goes underneath and this one goes underneath. You have it separately, all are separately. Yeah, this one could have this beautiful cast shadow area and this one the same. Okay. Yeah. Shadow here would do nicely. Also look at this each section. And another thing, when you are painting veins, and this is a lot of beginners and not even beginners, we are just assuming that there are straight veins. But if you look carefully, these veins are slightly curved. they have a little curve, not so intense, not so vivid, but this little curve makes it more realistic and rounder. You have straight veins that are going on both sides, but these veins are slightly curved, and that would be a nice touch to this painting. It will look more realistic. Okay. Then we have this one. Beautiful flowers, and this is the reference. First thing, background should be much darker. The more darker it will look, it will be, the more brighter these flowers will look. You don't need to do anything with these flowers, just add more layers to the background, and you will notice how these flowers are looking more and more vivid. There will be like they will be shining from that paper surface like they are in the reference. It's not about a photo, it's about the background. It's the contrast. When we have white flowers and we have dark background, or if we have white flowers and we have very intense shadow, that's what makes white flower appear white and realistic. So I would add more layers to the background. Even I know that you removed, I think that you here removed the tape, that you have a neat surrounding line, but this adding a little bit more to the background will make it more realistic, and these white flowers will appear brighter. Then to add a little bit more contrast to the middle parts, but very carefully, and that's it. Just to work with the background, and it will look completely different. Then we have a tulip sketchbook study page. I will remind you that this sketchbook study page was not about doing completely realistic representation of tulip. Here I have mine, and I also didn't went super realistic. It was more about practice, different angles of the flower head to practice, to see how we can work with different angles. And after these studies, you can go and paint something much bigger. Here, I like those very fine lines, beautifully done. What I would like to see, greater contrast on the stem, because when I look from the distance, this area of the middle petal and stem, it's blending together, and it looks like stem is going into the flower head. Also lemon yellow, because it's much brighter, more intense green color. And what else? Maybe a little bit more contrast to this lower part and this petal. And yeah, but it's beautifully done. It's beautifully done. I like those fine brush strokes, super beautiful, a lot of fine brush strokes, and these fine lines are going the direction that we see in the reference, which is very important. The direction of veins, petal veins, leaf veins, it doesn't matter. They have a certain direction. Each flower, each leaf has a certain direction of veins, and yeah. Then I have from our group, we have an artichoke, where I have a reference here. Let's make it a little bit smaller. So we have a beautiful artichoke and amazingly detailed, beautiful, perfect. I would add more contrast. When we have a finished work, putting side by side will help you see and slightly squinting eyes, you will notice that if I look at this reference, I see clearly that this area is darker and this is very bright. Here we have this line and this line. I lost the reference. Oh, here it is. It goes into the shadow. These corners of artichoke leaves are going into the shadow. And it means that these corners, these very light lines are also slightly darker. Then this one here, we can clearly see it turns away from light source and it's much darker. This one is much darker. These are a little bit too bright, but it's beautifully done. Just missing some shadows and contrast to make it even more realistic and more roundish, but amazing work. And I know that this lady, the student, as I understand, she just started in December, and that is like, wow, this is amazing results. I don't know, I even after half of the year, but I wasn't painting very often daily. But when I just started in 2016, I was terrible even after half of a year. But again, I wasn't so consistent. But if she just started in December, this is like, wow, I'm like blown away by her painting. Just a little bit more attention to the reference, where and understanding that each section has light, has shadow. It is going deeper into the head of the flower or artichoke or leaves, and even one petal can have different colors, different tonal values. Something is in the light and something goes into the shadow. Here we can see a cast shadow area. This can be much darker so that this is more brighter. Don't touch it, but if you will add shadow around on these different leaves, it will look more rounder and closer to the viewer, and these things will go a little bit further. A little bit more shadow on the right side. We can clearly see here shadow. Also, this little thingy here could be slightly darker. Just extra, I would say maybe extra hour, because this is quite advanced and lots of details, extra hour, and it will look perfect. And maybe you a little bit lost light on these little spikes. For example, this one here. Again, you can use synthetic stiff brush the same way I showed with water drops. You can also from little areas remove some watercolors. You can't remove huge areas in the same technique, but small areas you can definitely remove. Oh, this is beautiful. Pencil drop, colored pencil drawing. And especially when looking from distance, this looks like very juicy. Those light areas, I really enjoyed looking at this. Beautifully detailed done. And as you are painting with colored pencils, I think I wrote you in the comments, you can use the same technique to watercolors. It means less amount of water and more work with the brush, and you can achieve the same results, because with the pencils you have very smooth transitions, you have super detailed and fine lines, which maybe watercolors are missing. But again, I know that one of my artist friends from Instagram, she's first few layers applying with watercolors, and then she goes with colored pencils. And she has amazing results, and she just found that this suits best for her, because first layers go much faster with watercolors. You can do these layers with quite watery layers, and
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and then go over with pencils. And she's painting birds, but they are super realistic, super detailed, and she's finishing with colored pencils.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'll do that.
Yeah, you can definitely try.
Yeah,
But this is
exactly.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Very beautiful. Yeah.
It was fun to do.
This was a tutorial, or this you painted from a reference?
No, it's a tutorial from Emma Tiddesley. She's
Mhm.
on Patreon too.
Yeah, yeah. I saw her work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. How
Thank
about
you.
these little yellow thingies? Aren't they in the shadow?
No,
They're
they
in the
have
light.
a little thing. If you look at it more closely, there is some see it's very pale though.
Yeah.
Maybe yeah, they were very bright.
Okay. But beautifully.
Thank you.
Beautiful transitions. Okay. The same, we have the same tulip. Let's see if there we have lemon yellow could do the trick here. Also, will look much brighter, but beautiful light area. And maybe, yeah, I have everything is great. Everything is great. As this is a sketchbook study, and maybe a smoother transition here, but again, nicely done. And this could be a little bit darker. Just watery wash, and yeah, maybe this area darker, because to separate that this one is in the shadow and this is in the light. Now they have the same tonal value, this petal and this petal, but this is slightly darker just because it is away from light source. Beautifully done. Okay, we have a hibiscus here. Here's the reference. Okay. These few details of the shadow are too intense, and it also looks like maybe a Perlin Violet, and it went too intense, too saturated, and it really pops out and gets all the attention, unneeded attention. I would add, even if I look at the reference, I see that this area is the dark, this area and this area is the darkest. But now if I look at the painting, I can clearly see that this is darker and this is darker. But in reference, we need to make this, I would slightly with, sometimes, let me switch to the table. Sometimes if you have something very painted, too dark, too intense, then I'm taking my round synthetic brush. Where is it? Yeah, I have my round synthetic brush. And for example, let's consider that this water drop is too intense, too bright. So I water my round synthetic brush. I apply water over the whole area, and with the paper towel, and here is the some part of watercolors from this area, and I made this area lighter. Let's try, this one is a little bit older painted. Again, I put water, clean paper towel, press and remove, and here I have again some amount of watercolors went off. I can wait for this area to dry, and then I can go over again with clean water, press it, and again some watercolors came off. If we have painted something too intense, like these areas, I would definitely try to do that because they are too dark. This is too intense, but a little bit more shadow could be added right over here. and right over here around this green part. If you will carefully add shadow around this beautiful green tip, it will instantly come more contrasty out and be separated from flower bud more vividly. And yeah, a little bit shadow. You see that this the stamen goes inside the bud and it has a shadow here. Yours is missing, can have a shadow right over here. But yeah, careful, especially if you're using Perlin Violet, it can go too dark too fast. It's super intense pigment, which needs careful attention to the amount of and saturation. Here we have anemone. This is the reference. Let's this middle part, I would make it a little bit thinner. So from this shadow part, from this shadow area on the stem, I would make it a little bit thinner, and also it will be more calmer. Now it's too thick and it's too bright. Make it a little bit thinner, and maybe some watery wash of sap green will also help it. Then a little bit darkness right over here. I think you were using white gouache. It looks like white gouache, maybe. But it wasn't required here because it is in the shadow. We don't have some shiny spots here. We need to have these different tonal values in order to make it that some petals are more in the light, some it's dancing. This flower is dancing around stem, and we need to create this illusion. Something is darker, something is lighter. This is beautifully light. Here you can add, make it more, these corners make it a little bit calmer. And also this one here, we can see that this is all in the shadow. All in the shadow. This in the shadow, this definitely in the shadow, and a little bit more here. And then the same with the leaves that I have a mistake, a little bit more shadow here. And I would add a little bit darkness here because this is darker. It's completely covered with leaves and don't have light on this part of the stem. This one here can go darker. You could have left light here and make this one darker because this is again away from light source and light is hitting on this surface. Extra hour will definitely make it even, but still beautiful paintings of anemone. I really like how you did them beautifully. Here we have a mono and then we have a colored. I like when you do that. It's so amazing that you are trying. What I suggest you always, don't just blindly follow my tutorials. Think, see those different tonal values. Those tonal values will make all the difference in your painting process. No matter the color tone, no matter the style, if you will imply those tonal values, it will be amazing. Definitely need some areas make darker. Contrast is missing. Light is enough. You don't need to be don't need to touch light areas. Make it darker here, definitely here. Yeah, around this middle part, And this is also, it's not white, it's very light green, but it's not white. It's darker because still it's in the shadow. Darker this part of the stem, a little bit darkness here, a shadow right over here. This part can go, and here I think I was using transparent yellow or Indian yellow with green mix because it looks quite yellowish. very warm, definitely warm. This is cool. If you want to compare where you see cool and warm, this is a great example. Here you can definitely see this is cool and this is warm pigment. So here we need to leave as it is and definitely add some warm green watercolor mix, and it will look that there are different areas and it's curved and moving around. Now we have completely the same tonal values in this area. As we look here, even if I squint my eyes, I will see that this part is darker than this one. But in the reference, I can clearly see that this part is darker just because it is away from light source. Beautiful. Beautiful. Here we have intensity. Nice. As I look, maybe I'm wrong, but I can see that there's a lot of attention to the flower head, and the leaves were done in a hurry. I would add more details to the leaves, contrast. For example, this one here looks like it is broken because it's missing transition. It doesn't look that it is curved. Why? Because this line is too bright. We can see that here it is lighter, then it goes darker and thinner. Then something here is darker, then it is lighter. To make something rounder, we need to add these different tonal values in order to make something look curved. And this one is darker. If we compare these two sections, we need to somehow separate them. Stem can also here be darker. And this little tip is darker. Be careful with these dark lines. I would add a little bit more attention to the leaves and make them more, add them more details. Flower head is beautifully done. Also, this part is missing shadow. We can see that the stem is underneath the flower head and missing some shadows. This stem can, I can see that stem here is thinner and then it becomes thicker. And here, maybe when the petals were painted and color went into the stem area, it can be fixed, but it requires some really careful attention. Also, with the same stiff synthetic brush, you can slightly try to remove some part of the violet right over here, and then carefully with the clean water, clean brush, remove some part here. Then this part make a little bit, paint a petal here, just half of the millimeter. And here, if you will remove some violet, half of the millimeter, then it will straighten out. So as I'm showing with the arrow, here you need to remove violet, and here you need a little bit add violet. It will look more even and finer. Don't hurry. I know the temptation when we are almost finished, we see the flowers painted nicely. It looks perfect, everything working out. And then we think, oh, I need to hurry. Oh, there's just little stem and I will just do it quickly. No. Better pause, come back other day. It will be much better because you will rest. You will definitely look differently. And that's why I'm also, I have many reasons why I'm dividing some bigger composition into many parts. First of all, I don't want the tutorial to be extra large, like 2 to 3 hours. It will look tiring only looking at those numbers. But also, I painted one part, then I also pause for a few days, maybe even for a week. Then I come back and I pay my attention to the leaves as much as I did for the flower. And I post them on Patreon also with the gaps. So if you are choose the same day the tutorial came out, you will also have this gap and come back to the next part relaxed, calm, and finish it normally as you do the flower. If you wait till let's wait when the first, second, and third part come out, and then I will paint in one sitting. That's not a good idea. Better to paint it in different days, even weeks. You are not in a hurry. You don't need to, I don't know, send it somewhere maybe. It's more about you, and it's more about your practice. So better learn to paint with little gaps, and especially with realistic, and especially with botanical painting. If you think going further with botanical painting, it's better to learn that well, it's here. Okay, to learn that patience. Okay, we have here this one. I did this one. Then we have a peony. I have a reference. This is beautiful. I like the smoothness of petal. Amazing. Beautiful. It's the same student, which I think is painting from December. Crazy, crazy. Okay, so let's start with the flower head. A little bit tempting with these, but it's not a big deal. But I see that some petals are outlined with darker color. Don't follow that temptation to outline something. I can see some here, 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 here. We don't need to outline. If we look at the reference, of course, there are some flowers that have a darker edge, outer edge. Some leaves have that, but that is not the situation here. Peonies, I haven't noticed some like that have darker outlines. So here we can clearly see that even those edges are lighter. And here is beautifully done, but we can always do something better. We don't need these outlines. We don't need to separate petals. We have shadows on the next one that is separating this petal from another. We don't need this darker outline. We don't need here, here, here. It's no need. It's not required here as well. If it's a pencil, you can erase it. If it's a darker brush stroke, next time better don't do it. It's not the thing that you need to add. This one here looks like has only one layer. Here we can have a little bit of shadow. This one here also could have a little bit shadow right over here. Good. Yes, nicely. This one, maybe, just maybe, you could have a little bit more contrast. If I look at the reference, this area could have, and maybe here, as I look at the reference here, maybe, but again, it's a matter, because there are styles when realistic painting is done very smoothly without big contrast. Maybe it's your thing. It's not, it's just what I see from the reference, but again, you can slightly change it in your style. I would add a little bit more darkness here just to separate those petals. We can see clearly the lightest, slightly darker, and the darkest. Here we are slightly missing the separation. Again, it can be done. Here you can add a little bit more darkness. Maybe a little bit more shadow under behind this drop. And here, yeah, but nicely done, beautifully done. Okay, let's check the leaves. This leaf looks a little, it looks like it's not part of this flower. And it looks a little bit flat just because it's missing some tonal values. If we take a look, we can see that here, as it is curving underneath the flower head, I can see that there's the shadow, and we need to add shadow. Again, it can be done. This part is a little bit darker, especially on the right side. And yeah, other way, maybe shadow on the stem and add a little bit of lemon yellow, because take a look carefully. This part of the greens and the stem, they are more yellowish. And if we see at the peony, we clearly see that the stem is slightly different than the leaves. And leaves are more cooler. There's more blue, more perlin green, but the stem and these flower head green petals are more yellowish green. And yeah, stem is definitely missing some lemon yellow. You could add and it will instantly change. Okay, what we have more? I want to just show you, if somebody haven't noticed, this lady, Mary, she did
Beautiful.
an amazing work. When I saw it, and then she wrote this long article that she's oh, this is very you, and that she's missing eyesight in one eye, as I recall. But these paintings are amazing, amazing. If you haven't noticed them, you should need to go to our Facebook group and take a look. When I saw, I was like, wow, they are so beautiful. I have nothing to say. I really don't want to say anything here, because I was blown away by her story, and that she's doing and still enjoying and trying. And I know it is hard and maybe not so easy for her, but still it's amazing. Amazing. Okay, that's
Good.
it.
Thank you again.
Thank you all. Thank you all. This is so amazing to see you work and to see you enjoy what you are doing. Amazing. Maybe you have some questions.
Yes. Question.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, on your videos, you used to have a transcript where we could read what you were doing and stop it and read. Those have been missing. Is there a reason? Did that change or something?
You mean subtitles? Subtitles?
No, I mean, it says transcripts. When you hit your video on the Patreon, it goes over to the YouTube
Yeah.
thing. And then you hit more, and then it will say transcripts. And you hit the transcripts and it will say exactly what you're saying. And you can see the colors and you can see everything. The last few videos, they didn't put the transcripts. I'm not sure if that's something you have to do or
No.
YouTube does.
That's what I noticed. Someone wrote to me, and I noticed that some those I know which videos are those videos that I don't make, because like 90% of all tutorials, I do a voiceover. First I paint, and then I do a voiceover of my tutorials. But some, I recently started to add some tutorials for me, more talking while I'm painting. Then I just paint and talk along, especially those online school tutorials. And maybe that's the thing what YouTube isn't quite understanding, because it's not a voiceover. Yeah. I just
Okay.
noticed also recently someone else wrote to me that the subtitles are missing or this transcript because there was, I think, one lady which is Spanish and yeah, she needed. And then I said, oh, I'm really sorry, but yeah, that's not what
Okay.
I'm doing, but that's the YouTube.
YouTube. Okay, something new because it used to have them and it was really handy because you could stop them and say, oh yeah, she did this. Oh yeah, she did that.
Yeah, I
Okay.
hope that maybe that will be only with those that I paint and talk, but they are just like few a month or 1 or 2 max. But mostly I do a voiceover, and when I'm doing the voiceover, YouTube is recognizing and automatically adding those transcripts.
Okay, I just wondered if it was
Yeah.
changed. Okay, that's good. I did have one more question. When you remove from hot press paper, after you have a hard line and you're trying to remove that, it takes some of the paper. As you could see, the one I sent in, it was a mess. You know, when you put the colored pencils to it, I was using watercolor pencils. And then as I was trying to remove it with the water, it was smudging it and it wasn't not working. So you're not using watercolor pencils, right? You're using just regular.
Yeah, I'm not using watercolor because they are slightly different. I haven't really dig into colored pencil technical issues, but I know that they are different. Watercolor pencils, they should be used with water because then you can make them smooth, but normal pencils, but professional pencils, they are used to layer. You can, the same way as you are painting with watercolors, you can also layer, and the more layers, not too hard, but light layers, the more smoother and even it's gonna look.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, about your leaves, we will talk on Saturday when we will have that online. And when you are using starting to maybe feel like, oh, you're starting to lose something, and then you just add another layer of that and another layer of that, you need to stop and just pause and maybe paint another one again. That was just a study to understand tonal values. That wasn't about the color, as I mentioned in the beginning. You don't need to worry about the color, you can make them red. Just about understanding those tonal value transitions. And this color pencil option was optional.
Right.
I almost forgot it. I added at the very end. Then I remembered, oh, I wanted to. Yeah, and I like the result. I like incorporating some colored pencils, and I find it interesting. Because again, the creative persons, it's nice to experiment. It's nice to try something new, add something new, make it. It's interesting because I'm painting almost every day and doing all the time the same thing starts to feel a bit annoying. So adding a little bit something. But again, if you feel only positive to watercolors, you don't need to add colored pencils. It's your choice.
Okay, maybe I'll just get regular colored pencils.
Try don't buy huge set because they're
Right.
quite expensive. You can buy them separately. Maybe the same leaves, buy few 2-3 pencils and test them. See how it will go. You don't need to buy the whole set because they are quite expensive.
Okay. Thank
Well,
you.
Caran d'Ache is more expensive than polychromos.
Polychromos are also nice.
Polychromos, and they're very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are
Okay.
quite a few good brands for pencils, not just. I wanted to try Caran d'Ache and I heard about their qualities, and yeah, I took them.
They have different colors too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will you still have the reference photo on the tutorial like you used to do recently? You know, you have the reference photo on the corner of the tutorial. Will you do that?
I am adding recently to all tutorials. Are
Okay.
they missing some?
I think for the leaves, they were not there.
Really?
Yeah,
Sorry.
really. No, it's okay.
Oh, yeah, maybe. That was a very late night show for me. Yeah, but I try to add, yeah, because
Okay.
I more and more are saying that that is helping. So yeah, I try to,
Yeah.
add, yeah, sorry for
Okay,
that.
good. Thank you.
I need to add somewhere. Don't forget the reference.
Well, thank you very much. And I
Yes.
see you on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for
Yes.
painting. And yeah, see you on Saturday.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.